Do you see this number here, 15 amp hours? That's not how much energy is in the battery. This is. The inspiration for this video comes from all the different sailing channels that I personally follow.
Be able to get 2,000 amp hours of batteries.
So we've just finished a pretty amazing upgrade to 1,200 amp hour lithium bank.
Pulling 15 to 25 amps out of our battery bank, and that's all based on we've got three 300 amp hour rely-on batteries.
All these different clips has one thing in common, and maybe you already spotted what it is. They all refer to their battery capacity in amp hours. It's completely understandable why they and so many other people do that. I mean, it's right there on the box. Even the manufacturers do it. The only problem is that is not how much energy your battery can store. Main reason being that amp hours is not the measurement for energy. Joules is, or watt hours. Same potato. So let's talk about what an amp hour is and why it's not energy. So what is an amp hour? Well, I'm gonna start off by digressing and not talking about amp hours, just talking about amperes, or amps for short. An amp is a measurement of the flow rate of electric charge. And don't confuse this with the flow rate of electrons or energy. It's not the same thing. An electric charge is a physical property. It's what makes things float in midair when you place it in strong magnetic fields. It also works on living things like this frog, for example. If there was energy and not electric charge, the frog would go. That's cool, man. I ain't buying it. Who are you? John. Great. What are you doing here? Yep. So I have to convince you that amp hours is not energy. Is that it? Yep. Okay. I'm up for it. I'm gonna try with 3 different approaches. Common sense, practical, and theoretical. Let's start with the common sense one. If amps and energy was the same thing, then energy could only be produced by electricity. That is clearly not the case. The sun is not beaming a lot of amps down on us right now, and I think we ought to be happy about that. If it did, you probably wouldn't be able to turn off your lights at night. That would really suck. And also, you'd be considerably more dead than you are now. Also not optimal. If that uplifting prospect didn't convince you, then let's try the more hands-on approach. Here are 4 200 amp hour cells. I don't think I am stepping on anyone's toes here if I'm assuming that they can contain about the same amount of energy. And yet, if you connect these 4 200 amp hour cells, it's still only a 200 amp hour battery. So one of 2 things can have caused this. It could be that I'm a wizard and simply alakazammed 3/4 of the energy out of existence, and in that process also violated the laws of thermodynamics. It could also be that amp hours is not the measurement for how much energy is in a battery. Fitty. Clearly number 1. Okay, this is gonna be more difficult than I thought. We're gonna have to try the theoretical approach. I'm gonna make this as easy and non-boring as possible, so bear with me. In the far superior, one might add, metric and SI system, amps is one of the 7 base units. In physics terms, they are the lowest common denominator, which means that every other unit in the universe is made up of some combination of these 7 units. Let's take acceleration as an example. It's a function of time and distance, and no matter what you do, that specific combination of those 2 units will always describe how fast your car's picking up speed when you hit that pedal. You don't magically increase the acceleration by adding temperature to the equation if you turn on the air condition, which should be pretty obvious, right? So what base units does energy whittle down to? Well, as I mentioned before, joules, or the equally round potato watt hours, is a function of time, distance, and mass. Applying the same logic as before, you wouldn't magically get more energy by adding amps to the equation. If you did, that wouldn't be energy anymore. Okay, cool, but how much juice is in my babies, man? I am super glad you asked that question. Multiply the voltage by the amp hours, and you get the amount of energy that's in your babies. Oi, buddy! You just told me that amps is not energy. Well, it's not. It's right there. I mean, it's right there. It's right bloody there. Yeah, that's true. But again, we have to look at all the base units of the equation. Volts is mass times velocity squared divided by amps times time. And so by the power of math, we can remove amps and time, and we are left with energy. Oh, fuck off. You think you're so clever with your numbers and your letters and your units. Things, units, whatever, I'm out. I'm gonna watch this instead. Oh, you intellectuals think you're so clever, but you don't even need a fucking head. That's also me. What?